So you said they're down.
Yes.
So do you have any kind of report that you can give to the legislature regarding
Certainly
those
I can
incidents?
provide that too. Yeah, it's down dramatically. I do know that, but I want to be accurate when I give you the number.
Thank you. That would be helpful.
Of course.
I just want to touch on Phase 2 implementation that is placing youth in limited secure placements.
Yes.
As you said, you've launched Phase 2 recently, and you said there have been 6 young people who have been placed through the program. And just to follow up, how many limited secure facilities does New York City oversee, and what level of oversight do you have as an agency over those facilities? How does that operate?
Yeah. So the city contracts, they did an RFP, a request for proposal within the city for the provision of those limited secure services. I believe there are 3 providers who were selected, and I believe right now there are probably 6 or 7 active open programs that we license. So they have to apply for us. They have to go through a rigorous application period. We have to make sure that everything that was in that program proposal comports with the limited secure plan that the city said. So there is intense state involvement even before any youth go into the facility. It is us who actually issue the operating license for the city contracted program. And again, Senator, I think our state team's oversight of the limited secure portion is similarly intensive as it was in the non-secure portion. Our staff do unannounced visits to close-to-home programs. We receive incident reports. We meet regularly with those agencies to help problem solve and provide, excuse me, technical assistance. So there's a lot of state involvement, and the city's been a good partner with us.
Thank you. Have there been incidents of youth escaping from the limited secure in New York City under the close to home?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any information on the rates of violence, again, youth on staff in those facilities?
I do not have that available.
How could we get that information?
I'll see what is collected, Senator, and we'll see what we can provide
Okay, thank
to you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think that concludes your portion of the program. Thank you for sticking with it. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you all
and
very much.
Look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All.
Our next speaker, actually I think we have a group, testifying on behalf of New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, Commissioner Samuel D. Roberts. We have James S. Rubin, Commissioner of the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. Sharon Devine, Executive Deputy Commissioner of the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. Linda Glassman, OTDA Deputy Commissioner, and Krista Rock, OTDA General Counsel. Welcome.
You sure? Yeah.
Okay, great. So the question is, who's on first?
Keep your eyes at the center.
To the center.
Yes.
Well, welcome, and we look forward to your testimony.
Good morning, almost afternoon, to the Finance Committee Chairs Farrell as well as Young, and to the Social Services Committee Chairs Hevesy and Carlucci, and to all the committee members here today. I'm Sharon Devine. I'm the OTDA's Executive Deputy Commissioner. Unfortunately, Commissioner Sam Roberts is unable to be here with us this morning due to an emergency back in Syracuse. I want to begin by talking about OTDA's core mission, which is to help the most vulnerable New Yorkers get back on their feet. The agency oversees a range of the state's most important programs for low-income residents, focusing on employment wherever possible. These programs serve over 4.5 million New Yorkers, and they include providing cash, food, heating assistance, overseeing the state's child support enforcement program, supervising homeless and housing services programs, inspecting homeless housing shelters, and providing assistance to certain refugees and immigrant populations. The agency also provides funding to local districts and not-for-profits to assist low-income families in finding and retaining employment. Over the past year, major agency accomplishments include providing more than $70 million to create over 800 homeless housing units, launching a statewide shelter inspection initiative, collecting a state record of $1.8 billion in child support payments, and increasing the state's SNAP participation rate to 86% of all eligible New Yorkers. That's up 6% from the previous year. Governor Cuomo, who started working to help homeless people over 30 years ago, says he's deeply troubled by our homeless crisis. We need to rally around the governor's unprecedented $20 billion housing plan and his 2016 Built to Lead agenda. I know my colleague, Commissioner Rubin from HCR, covered the details of that plan in his testimony. So what I'm planning to focus on is the important steps my agency is taking to immediately make sure that homeless people come in from the cold and are housed in safe, clean shelters. OTDA is working closely with local service districts to help each county comply with the executive order to protect homeless when temperatures drop to 32 degrees or below. My agency has launched an unprecedented initiative to inspect homeless shelters statewide. This effort is designed to ensure that shelters are safe and well maintained, as well as fully compliant with laws and regulations. To support these inspections, OTDA introduced new regulations that strengthen the state's oversight authority over the emergency shelter network. Reducing poverty is critical, and we've made historic economic progress in New York State since the governor took office 5 years ago. Unfortunately, concentrated pockets of poverty still remain. The statewide poverty rate is less than 16%. However, some cities have poverty rates that are double that. The governor's Empire State Poverty Reduction Initiative will provide $25 million to 10 targeted high poverty areas around the state. Each of the 10 communities selected will receive $500,000 in implementation grants. Then government stakeholders and not-for-profit organizations will partner to apply for the remaining $20 million in capital grants. Governor Cuomo wants us to help 750,000 more families gain access to the federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Needs Program, often called SNAP. He is also adopting the recommendation of the Anti-Hunger Task Force and raising the gross income test from 130% of the federal poverty level to 150% for all households with earned income. Those additional households could receive up to $700 million in federally funded SNAP benefits each year. They'll spend those funds in local markets and create an economic impact of $1.2 billion annually. I'm looking forward to collaborating with you and along with the governor and our partner agencies as we work to lift and fortify all New Yorkers. Our agency is dedicated to helping the most vulnerable with no judgments attached. We welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you.
Before we take questions, I'd just like to introduce the two individuals who are sitting at the table with me. We have Commissioner Jamie Rubin, as Senator Young has stated. We collaborate a lot together on homeless and housing issues, so we thought we'd bring Jamie along. We also have Krista Rock, who leads our legal division within the agency and has expert knowledge as well. We're ready for any questions.
Thank you very much for that. Our first speaker is Senator Persaud.
Good morning.
Who, by the way, is Ranking Member on Social Services, so we're glad to hear from you.
Good morning. My first question to you, it's in reference to TANF funding, because I didn't really hear much about the funding around surrounding children. As we know, $19.5 million were cut. And most of these cuts have to do with child care. What is the rationale for these cuts, especially in a time when we know child care subsidy is critical in our state?
At its core, OTDA is about helping families to get back on our feet, and we recognize the importance of child care in that effort. And so the child care funding we look at as an important tool to help our clients achieve economic self-sufficiency. So as such, we're working with our colleagues over in OCFS on the funding that has been identified. You know, as they evaluate the cost and the programmatic implications to their child care needs, we will be working with them to determine what the best approach is moving forward.
Was child care specifically targeted for these cuts? Because it seems disproportionate to the other cuts.
Right. Well, I defer to my colleagues in OCFS on the impact of those cuts. But, you know, again, OTDA sees child support as an important, you know, support for those families who are working and need the additional support.
Thank you. My other question is around public assistance to the caseload. We are cutting back, we see a decrease in the caseload. And what can you tell us that contributes to this decrease in caseload and the funding? And what specific factors were taken into consideration when you did the budget estimates?
So annually, as the executive budget is prepared, caseload projections, which are based on a number of different economic factors and models, and it would take into account current employment levels, the state's minimum wage, as well as a number of state and national factors. So when you combine all of those features, Division of the Budget has come up with a projected caseload, and the funding that has been appropriated in this year's budget is sufficient to cover that caseload.
I am not really seeing that, but I will follow up on with you on that.
Okay.
The decrease in the caseload, do you foresee this as a trend going forward in the out years? And what is contributing again to that trend?
Can you repeat that again?
The decrease in the caseload. Can you say it will continue in the out years? And what do you think really is contributing to this decrease? Because we see an increase in need, but a decrease in the caseload.
I think I'm not an economist, but I think that there are a lot of factors economically that play into whether or not the caseload would increase or decrease. I think it's, you know, really based on having enough jobs around the state in order for people to maintain a standard of living. And so, I don't work on those projections. However, those would be my assumptions.
You say it's increasing the standard of living. That ties into our raise the wages, but that's a different topic. Getting back to TANF funding again, there's CUNY's child care funding was cut. Can you tell me why, when there's such a great need for child care assistance within CUNY?
I'm sorry. I wish I had the answer to that. I really don't know. I would have to defer to the education experts on the funding levels within the state university system.
Well, it's all within your agency. The funding for that particular program was cut from your agency.
For CUNY?
Yeah, the child care subsidy.
Okay, I would have to look into that.
Okay. My other question to you. Again, it's around homelessness. And we see that the executive budget includes comprehensive affordable housing and the homeless plan. Under the executive's affordable housing plan, it's proposed to add 1,000 emergency shelter beds. Do we know the cost of each bed, and where are we proposing to place each bed? New York City in particular has a growing homeless population. And when we say 1,000 beds and the amount of money that we're talking about, you allocating 1,000 beds is just a drop in the bucket. What are our real plans to combat the homeless situation?
Mm-hmm. There are a number of different things that we are doing to combat the homeless system, but to address the 1,000-bed issue, we are currently working to identify where the greatest need is with regards to the shelter beds, and so adding additional shelter beds will only help us be able to address the larger statewide homeless issue. However, this executive budget is just a banner year for the agency with regards to homelessness. As you know, there are several different initiatives that are included in there. We've talked about the $20 billion, but 10 of that is specifically geared towards the governor's homeless action plan, which would include the creation of 6,000 units of supportive housing across the state of New York. It also would include support for several homeless housing services programs, and so we're looking forward to enactment of this budget this year.
Do you have the distribution of the 6,000 units? And again, can you tell me the 1,000 beds? Do you have the distribution of that?
We do not have the distribution of the 1,000 beds. However, I'd like to defer to my colleague, Commissioner Rubin, on distribution of the 6,000.
Okay. Good morning, Senator. I assume you're asking about geographic, just to be sure. So I testified, you were not there, but I testified a couple of weeks ago about the supportive housing plan. And I think I said at the time that while we don't have an exact geographic breakdown yet, it should track roughly the incidence of homeless or special needs populations across the state. And if the past data that we've got points to where we are today, which it probably does, my guess is you're going to see something like, call it 75 to 85% of those beds in New York City, and the balance in the rest of the state.
Are you paying particular attention to the rural areas where there's a growing homeless population also?
With respect to the supportive housing plan, sure. So actually, this is going to be a little bit of a ping pong ball exercise, but I think my guess is that with respect to the rural homeless, again, we have any number of programs across state agencies to address them. I know that my colleagues at OTSDA have, through the HHAP, particularly outside of New York City, very valuable, have over time assisted and helped build many of the smaller homeless agencies. My guess is some of those are in rural areas.
Absolutely. The HHAP program has successfully created thousands of units all across the state of New York, and so we're looking to continue that program in order to address some of those rural areas as well.
Thank you. That's it for now.
Thank you. Assembly?
Thank you. We've been, first a question from our side. Chairman Hevesy.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. First, I appreciate the fact that all of you are here because I know some of the issues across both. And to start with, let's give some credit where credit is due. This is a very good budget, and we'd like to thank the governor. Let me go through it. So first, the fact that the $15 million rental assistance program that the Assembly and the Senate put forward last year has been baseline for 5 years. Thank you for that. That is outstanding. I will touch on a non-budget issue that we are greatly appreciative of, which is the sanctions, the conciliation bill that the governor signed. I know Assemblyman Wright has been pushing for that for several years, so that's great. Thank you. We will be coming back, as I mentioned to Ms. Devine, we'll be coming back for the rest of state. I hate that phrase, rest of state, but we'll be coming back with all of New York State, so that's great. And then supportive housing. To be perfectly honest, this is, this is historic, and the governor, to his credit, should take a bow on this one. 20,000 units of supportive housing, in addition to the mayor's 15,000, is remarkable. I know some executives like saying this is historic frequently, but this is actually historic. I want to give the governor credit and thank him and you for your work on this issue. A couple of questions I have about, let me start there with with that commitment to 20,000. Are you guys in conversations with the city to put together a New York 4 agreement so we can make sure that those 20,000 come online after both Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo are no longer in office?
So I think our foremost concern is about getting the program up and going and making sure that we are delivering the units as quickly as we possibly can. And so I'm not sure when an agreement will be signed or if it's even necessary, understanding that the 20,000 units are fully funded, and I think New York City's units are also fully funded.
Okay, I understand that and I appreciate it, but from a legislative perspective, and I take both the governor and the mayor at their word with their numbers, but they're going to be out of office. So to budget long-term and to make sure that there's a commitment by the city and the state respectively, I would really look at to start looking to get an agreement together. I would strongly insist on that if I could. But in the context of, I am incredibly grateful to your actions on that. Let me ask you a couple questions about the 6,000 units if I can. Right now, as I understood, Commissioner Rubin, you said that, or my understanding of the plan is most of the supportive housing units are going to be matching what the city has proposed. Is that the current plan with your 6,000? So it would be 5,000 for the city and about 1,000 or 1,200 upstate?
Assemblyman, if that's, and before I answer your question, I want to make sure you're talking about giving credit where credit is due. I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for your leadership on this exact same issue.
See, we work together, great things happen, and that's everybody in the legislature. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Not at all. As far as geographic distribution, again, the best we can do at the moment, I think, is the way our agency works. And our agency is the capital provider for most of those units, if not for most of those units. We issue periodic capital, RFPs, so capital, competitive issuances to make the world know that our capital is available once they've got services contracts in place. My guess is that what we will see is that the distribution, as I said, of applicants for that capital is going to be something like, I don't know, call it 85% New York City and 15% rest of state. That just matches where our best understanding is of where the capital has been spent in past years.
Okay, so if I may, a recommendation. So first, if you're talking about capital units, you mean that by definition you're going to build new housing or new units. So that means no units are coming online until about 2018, 2019 is my understanding. Am I right?
Assemblyman, anticipating where you're going with this, if I can try.
Yeah, no, go, please.
We specifically, in the 6,000 unit commitment, we specifically did not include funding for scatter site units, which are, as I'm sure aware, better aware than I am probably, the traditional method for bringing online new capacity ahead of the capital, the capital cycle. The reason for that is fundamentally we had I will say we had some concerns about the scatter site model just generally, and you know the policy issues around it. And the governor wanted to make sure that that this was a long-term plan, a long-term capital plan, and that funding for scattered site may come from elsewhere. My understanding is that the mayor's plan has substantial funding for new scatter site, which is obviously is a different model.
So we're on the same page. I would recommend an addition of scatter site units on top of the 6,000 to address the need for immediate relief, but primarily upstate. Now, I'm a guy from Queens, but I got to tell you, upstate has a real homelessness problem too. So if you're looking to do scatter site, and even though my colleagues in the city might not love this, I would strongly recommend that you take a look at upstate first for immediate relief, and some in the city as well. Also, just recognizing that scatter site in the city and scatter site upstate are very different animals. So I would ask you to take a look at that.
Thank you,
if I could move on to existing supportive housing units, and Ms. Devine, you and I talked about this. Advocates and my colleagues in the Assembly and I have estimated that there's about a $4.8 million deficit for current supportive housing units that will need an additional $4.8 million to sort of keep them up and running baseline. And while we're talking about this in the context of a great commitment long-term for new units, I just want to make sure that the units we have online that have just come online here are properly funded. So we're going to be looking to move on that in the Assembly. I would also ask you to consider that as well. We have the number at it's 38.99 million, I'll call it, 39 or 40, but I would ask you to keep an eye on that.
Absolutely.
And then there's some other homeless issues I just want to bring to your attention. First, there is language in the budget, Article 7 language, that permits the state to withhold funds from New York City. Whatever the logic is behind that one, I just want you to know that's not me. Okay. I just want you to know that's a non-starter for us. I just don't see the need for that. And then I have some questions about the 1,000 new emergency beds. And Senator Prasad raised this. Just the plan with that, what's the logic? Where do you think you're going to put those beds?
Based on the crisis that we have at hand, the state thought it prudent to develop as many additional units to help the locality as we possibly could. And so 1,000 units is the target that the governor has set for us. We're working towards that right now, identifying possible locations and working towards administrative red tape to possibly bring those online, which will provide relief for the local districts.
Which is great. I would just recommend that those units don't go to New York City. They're duplicative. They have a robust shelter system. I know it's been part of a public debate, but it's robust. So if you have their system and add, several hundred beds on top of that from the state, redundancies, duplicative, it just doesn't make sense to me. So my recommendation is to take those shelter beds, which we greatly appreciate that you're putting online, and look to the rest of state. Again, the phrase rest of state. So I apologize. Then can you do me a favor and talk through the shelter inspections piece of the budget?
Absolutely. So as far as shelter inspections, I think the governor made it very clear in the state of the state that the conditions that we are currently experiencing within the shelters, we need to do something about. It's local district's responsibility to ensure that the shelters are being maintained in a safe and clean and well-maintained manner. And we did a blitz of shelters, an inspection blitz last year around May of 2015. And what that blitz told us was that the conditions were not up to par and that we need to really launch a statewide effort to look at every single shelter that's out there. So our initiative is going to cover the 900 shelters that are across the state, approximately 700 of which are in New York City. And as you do know, we will be collaborating with the comptrollers in order to conduct those.
Okay,
those
and with the administration as well as a collaborative effort, I'm assuming and hoping, because I know there's been some tension on this issue. I'm just hoping this, for this particular piece, inspections of shelters, and they should be done, they should be robust, and there should be a rapid reaction to it, but a coordinated effort. But I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Two other questions, and I know my time is getting limited, but your anti-poverty initiative, $25 million for upstate, $20 million capital. Look, we're looking to accept it because any bit we get to help deal with poverty is helpful. But what are you guys thinking localities, the 10 you've identified, can do with that money?
It's a start. I recognize that poverty is a large issue. It hasn't happened to families overnight, and we're not going to be able to solve it overnight. However, I'm really excited about the anti-poverty initiative because it's going to give seed money to those 10 communities who have had high poverty concentrations in their areas. Yeah. And so with the seed money, of course, they'll be able to work with not-for-profit community as well as other, for-profit entities that are interested in helping to pave a road for recovery of poverty in these various areas.
Okay, and we appreciate that. And we will be in the Assembly coming forward with a pretty robust package related to anti-poverty and public assistance and how the system is actually working at this time. So I'd look to have conversations with you on that, and maybe those two could be joined. One last question, and Senator, forgive me, I know that I am running out of time, but when it relates to HIV funding, it's my understanding that the City of New York included $26 million in their budget for HASA, to expand HASA, and I was just wondering if there's going to be a state match to that money.